Joining us now is Charlotte Bradley, who is Laurie's younger sister. Many of Laurie's family are here today: his younger brother John, his partner Annette, and his two beloved children, Michael and Jacinta. Charlotte is going to share some stories from Laurie from throughout their lives, especially their childhood, and experiences that they shared together that have shaped the person that we all knew and loved. Charlotte.
It's difficult to put into words, can you hear me?
Yeah.
How much Laurie meant to those of us who knew and loved him. Today, alongside my family, I stand here not only as his sister, but as someone who shared the long arc of his life, from childhood through years of upheaval, dislocation, and finally reconnection. This journey wasn't always easy, but it was rich in passion, meaning, and independence. I might just start telling our story by providing a brief background on our family. Our ancestors were Peranakans in Java, Indonesia. Peranakans were descendants of mainland Chinese men who migrated to Indonesia and Southeast Asia as traders and sailors over the many centuries. The ones who stayed married indigenous women and adopted local life. Many Peranakans became middlemen employed by the Dutch East Indies Company in Indonesia during the Dutch colonization. Their descendants were of mixed race. There were too Indonesian to be called Chinese and too Chinese to be called Indonesian. Furthermore, Peranakans suffered from the Dutch policy that created segregation between the Peranakans and the local Indonesians. So our parents were Peranakans, born in Indonesia, and our father was educated in the Dutch system. Thus it transpired that our father was completing his postgraduate studies in the Netherlands when Laurie was born in The Hague in 1950. At home, we only spoke Dutch and Indonesian. When our father completed his studies and when Laurie was 5, we moved back to Indonesia. But with growing nationalism in Indonesia, there was growing hostility against the Chinese and the Peranakans. So after just a few years, we were uprooted again, leaving Indonesia like refugees with no more than 7 suitcases. We ended up in Singapore, but there we also felt out of place because we looked Chinese but didn't speak a word of the language. We went to local schools in Singapore in order to learn English, and then another year we went to the Dutch schools because my parents decided to go back to Holland. We were going to go by ship to Holland, and the ship was going to stop at every port, and our father was going to hop off and look for work. The third port we visited was Melbourne. Here, our father, who was a lecturer in economics, managed to restart his career from scratch as a research assistant at the University of Melbourne. He was in his 40s. As children, we didn't understand why we moved so often. By the time we got to high school, we had switched schools at least 6 times. We were never told the full story, but uncertainty and dislocation stayed with us. Our parents rarely spoke about it, but we all carried the sense of being outsiders, trying to find our place in a world that kept on shifting underneath our feet. Eventually, our father obtained a lectureship at the University of New England, which meant 2 years later we had to move again, this time to Armidale, New South Wales. Armidale was a small town, and we were the only Asian family in our social world. This era was the era of widespread policy, so our family never really fitted in. I think Laurie felt this more than anyone. Our parents were incredibly ambitious for us. They wanted education, stability, and status for their children. Laurie, as the eldest, bore the weight of their expectations. Our father wanted him to follow in his footsteps and study economics. Laurie tried, but it just wasn't meant to be. Just before his final university exams, Laurie disappeared. He just vanished. In hindsight, he reached a breaking point, and with great courage, or perhaps sheer desperation, he walked away from a life that his father wanted for him. Laurie was estranged from our family for several years. During this time, he went to Tamworth, where he got into music. He started playing guitar. He also became an illustrator for a student newspaper, and he started doing sign writing for supermarkets. He then moved to Sydney. By then, he was seriously into music, playing bass guitar in a band with regular gigs every weekend. He was also artistic director for a musical called Man-Child, in the days when the musical Hair took the world by storm. Sydney was also where he met and married his first wife, Judy. Laurie and Judy then moved to Adelaide, where he carved out a fulfilling life for himself. He followed his true passion. He enrolled in art school. He thrived in a family life with Judy and their two children, Jacinda and Michael. He was always busy and full of energy. Laurie and Jude made a great team in those days. They were forever flipping houses. And when one was completed, another project would be on the drawing board. Laurie was practical, he was a problem solver, and he was keen to learn new skills. In Adelaide, Laurie became a prolific potter, as well as an accomplished painter. He had several exhibitions of his ceramics and paintings over there. Life revolved around the studio in the basement or by the pottery kiln which Laurie had built himself in the backyard. Then, in his mid-30s, Laurie decided to take a new direction. He left his clay, his paints, his home, and Adelaide, and embarked on a new adventure in Wollongong. He became a multidisciplinary artist focusing on installations, sculpture, 3D animation, videos, and graphics. He divided his time, as you heard, as well, between Wollongong, Las Vegas, and Beijing. For the next 40 years of his life, he was supported by Vivian, his muse in art and life. She was fiercely loyal and was immensely proud of his achievements. She was his tireless advocate throughout their time together. Laurie thrived in contradiction. Despite having no deep connection to Chinese culture through his upbringing, his art was profoundly shaped by Chinese heritage, language, and philosophy. Despite not speaking the language, that's Jace's son Tom. Despite not speaking the language, he spent a lot of his time in Beijing, immersing himself in a culture he hadn't grown up with, and which at the beginning was quite alien to him. In an interview, he once said that he moved to Beijing because his appearance labelled him a foreigner in other countries. And yet, having grown up in the West, he was in the curious position of being a foreigner in China as well. He found his Chinese identity through sheer determination. Despite the constant uprooting in his childhood, he spent much of his later years travelling and living in various corners of the world. Laurie was a guiding light for many of us. In the case of Michael, his son, Laurie was his role model and mentor, as Michael often joined him wherever he happened to be in the world. Michael, an accomplished digital artist himself, has been based in Berlin for the last 15 years. Although Laurie had hardly connected with Jacinda through the years, over recent times, Jacinda dropped everything in her life to support Laurie in all sorts of practical ways, especially in the last few months when he was debilitated by disease, by his illness. Not long ago, Laurie told me he rejoiced in having found his long-lost daughter after so many years apart. Laurie's relationships and his art stand as a testament to his courage, his drive to triumph over the very struggles that once defined him. Due to Viv's unwavering love and support, Laurie was able to live a full life. He was brave and he had a big heart. He was totally focused and was driven by passion and the search for authenticity. And in doing so, he left behind a legacy of strength, resilience, and beauty.
Thank you, Charlotte. I think I can say on behalf of everybody, it's so lovely to hear these stories of the big early life of Lawrence that we're not all of us in Sydney were able to know.